Have you ever noticed how the first $10,000 feels like climbing Mount Everest, but somehow the next 20 comes faster than you expected? Well, buckle up, because what happens after 30,000 is about to completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about money and freedom. Most people think wealth building is linear, and save a dollar, get a dollar closer to your goals. Hit 10,000, you're 10% of the way to 100,000, hit 20, you're 20% there. Simple math, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. And this kind of thinking is exactly why most people never escape the hamster wheel of trading time for money. My name is Nick, and I spend an embarrassing amount of time thinking about money psychology and why some people break free from financial stress while others stay trapped forever. If you're someone who actually wants to understand how real wealth building works instead of just hoping everything magically works out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up changing how you think about your financial future. Here's something that will probably surprise you. The $30,000 mark isn't just another milestone on your way to financial independence. It's the moment when everything fundamentally shifts. It's where you stop working for money and money finally starts working for you. It's where safety transforms into systems, where protection becomes leverage, and where your entire relationship with wealth changes forever. You thought 10,000 made you feel safe, 20,000 made you feel in control, but 30,000? That's when everything starts moving on its own. And most people have absolutely no idea this transformation is coming. Let me paint you a picture of what most people's financial journey actually looks like. At $5,000 saved, you're still checking your bank account every morning with that little knot in your stomach. Will there be enough to cover rent this month? What if the car breaks down? What if something unexpected happens? You're living in survival mode, and every financial decision feels like it could make or break your entire future. Hit 10,000 and something interesting happens. That knot in your stomach loosens just a bit. You start sleeping better at night. You can handle a minor emergency without going into debt. You've built what financial experts call a basic emergency fund, and for the first time in maybe years, you can breathe a little easier. This is the safety milestone. It's important, but it's just the beginning. 20,000 feels different. Now you're not just surviving, you're starting to think strategically. You can weather bigger storms. Maybe you can finally quit that toxic job if something better comes along. You start thinking about investments, maybe contributing to a retirement account. You've moved from survival mode to growth mode. This is where most people feel like they've finally got their act together financially. But here's where things get really interesting. Most people assume 30,000 is just 10,000 more of the same feeling. A little more security, a little more breathing room, maybe the ability to take a slightly nicer vacation. They couldn't be more wrong. $30,000 represents a fundamental shift in the physics of wealth building. It's where compound interest stops being a theory in some finance textbook and starts becoming a real force in your life. It's where you transition from managing money emotionally to managing it strategically. It's where you stop thinking like someone who has money and start thinking like someone who builds wealth. At 30,000, something magical happens to your brain. You stop seeing dollars as something to hoard and start seeing them as tools that can work for you. Every dollar now has a job. Some dollars are soldiers standing guard in your emergency fund. Other dollars are workers going out into the world of investments to bring back friends. Some dollars are scouts, exploring new opportunities that could change your entire trajectory. This isn't just feel-good psychology. There's real science behind what happens when you reach this threshold. Behavioral economists call it the transition from scarcity mindset to abundance mindset. When you have $30,000, your brain stops operating from a place of fear and starts operating from a place of possibility. You begin making decisions based on opportunity rather than survival. Think about it this way. When you had $5,000, spending $100 on anything felt like a big decision. When you had $20,000, that $100 was still something you thought about carefully. But at $30,000, your decision-making process fundamentally changes. You're not asking yourself if you can afford something. You're asking yourself if it's the best use of that money to create more money or more freedom or more opportunities. Here's where most people completely miss the point. They think 30,000 is about having more stuff or being able to spend more money. They see it as permission to upgrade their lifestyle, buy a fancier car, or move to a more expensive apartment. And sure, you could do those things, but that's thinking like someone who has money, not someone who builds wealth. The people who understand the 30,000 rule think differently. They see this milestone as the moment when they can start playing offense instead of defense. Instead of just protecting what they have, they can start positioning their money to create even more money. They can start taking calculated risks that weren't possible before. They can start building systems that generate income without their direct involvement. At $30,000, you gain access to investment opportunities that simply weren't available or practical before. You can diversify across different asset classes. You can put meaningful amounts into retirement accounts that will compound for decades. You can invest in yourself through education or skill development that dramatically increases your earning potential. You can even start exploring business opportunities or side hustles with the confidence that failure won't destroy you financially. But here's the part that really separates the wealth builders from everyone else. At $30,000, you start thinking in terms of systems rather than goals. Instead of just trying to save more money, you start building automatic systems that save and invest money without you having to think about it. Instead of just hoping to earn more, you start investing in skills and relationships and assets that generate income on their own. This is what I call the freedom flywheel. At $30,000, you have enough money to buy time, which you can use to develop skills, which help you earn more money, which you can use to buy more time and develop even better skills. The whole system starts feeding on itself and accelerating in ways that most people never experience because they never reach this critical threshold. And here's the kicker. Most people stop right before they reach this transformation. They get to 20 or 25,000 and think they've made it. They get comfortable, they stop learning, stop taking risks, stop pushing themselves to grow. Comfort kills ambition, and they plateau right before the most exciting part of their wealth building journey begins. The $30,000 rule isn't about luxury, it's about leverage. It's about creating a life where time, choice, and freedom compound faster than money ever could. It's about transitioning from someone who works for money to someone who has money working for them. And once you understand this principle, everything about your financial future changes forever. Look, I need to tell you something that most financial gurus won't admit. They love talking about that magical $100,000 milestone, but they're missing the real story. Because here's what actually happens at 30,000 that nobody talks about. You don't just gain more money. You gain something far more valuable. You gain the ability to say no. Think about your last job interview. If you had $300 in your bank account, you probably would have taken whatever they offered, right? Maybe even thanked them for the opportunity. But when you're sitting on $30,000, something shifts. You start asking different questions. What's the growth potential here? What's the company culture like? Do I actually want to spend 40 hours a week with these people? You're not desperate anymore, and desperation is expensive. This is what I call the no power. It's the most underrated superpower in personal finance, and it kicks in hard at the 30,000 mark. You can say no to that manipulative boss who's been making your life miserable. You can say no to that side hustle that pays well but makes you want to throw your laptop out the window. You can say no to investments that feel sketchy, relationships that drain your energy, and opportunities that look good on paper but feel wrong in your guts. But here's where it gets really interesting. Once you have the power to say no, you suddenly become much better at saying yes to the right things. It's like having a superpower that works in reverse. The more you can afford to walk away from something, the more likely you are to find something worth staying for. At $30,000, you start making what I call strategic decisions instead of survival decisions. When your car breaks down, you're not frantically calling everyone you know to borrow money or putting it on a credit card at 20% interest. You calmly evaluate your options. Fix this car or replace it. If you replace it, what makes the most sense financially long term? You're thinking like an investor, not like someone who's drowning. And here's something weird that happens that nobody warns you about. Your friends and family start treating you differently, not necessarily better or worse, but definitely differently. Some people will start asking you for money advice, which is flattering until you realize they want the results without doing any of the work. Others might get a little weird about money around you, like they're embarrassed about their own situation or resentful of yours. Here's my advice. Don't become the person who talks about money all the time, but also don't pretend you're broke to make other people comfortable. You worked for this milestone, and the skills you developed getting here are exactly the skills you need to keep growing. Speaking of growing, let's talk about what most people get completely wrong at this stage. They think 30,000 is their finish line instead of their starting line. They finally feel secure, so they ease up. They stop learning about money, stop looking for ways to optimize their situation, stop taking calculated risks. This is the plateau trap, and it's where good savers go to die financially. The people who break through this plateau understand something crucial. 30,000 isn't about arriving somewhere. It's about positioning yourself for what comes next. It's like reaching base camp on Mount Everest. You're not at the summit yet, but you're finally in position to make a real attempt. This is where you start thinking in systems instead of goals. Instead of just trying to save more money, you build automatic systems that save and invest money without you having to think about it. Instead of just hoping to earn more, you start developing skills and relationships and assets that generate income, whether you're working or sleeping or binge watching Netflix. Here's a perfect example. When you had $10,000, buying a $1,000 course on digital marketing or web design felt impossible. When you had $20,000, it felt risky. But at $30,000, you start asking different questions. Will this skill increase my earning potential by more than $1,000? If the answer is yes, it's not an expense anymore. It's an investment. This shift in thinking is what separates people who build wealth from people who just accumulate money. Money accumulators hoard their cash because they're afraid of losing it. Wealth builders deploy their cash strategically because they understand that the biggest risk isn't losing money. The biggest risk is wasting opportunity. At $30,000, you can start taking advantage of opportunities that most people can't even see, let alone afford. Maybe it's investing in a friend's business that you believe in. Maybe it's moving to a city with better career prospects. Maybe it's quitting your job to start that business you've been talking about for years. Maybe it's going back to school or getting a certification that could double your income. The key is that you're not making these decisions from desperation anymore. You're making them from strength. And decisions made from strength tend to work out a lot better than decisions made from fear. But here's the part that really blows people's minds. At $30,000, you start thinking about money completely differently. Instead of seeing dollars as something to spend or save, you start seeing them as employees. Some of your dollar employees work in your emergency fund, standing guard against unexpected problems. Other dollar employees work in your investment accounts, going out into the world to recruit more dollars to join your team. This isn't just some cute metaphor. This is literally how wealthy people think about money. Every dollar should have a job, and every dollar should be working toward making your life better, easier, or more free. When you start thinking this way, spending money randomly starts feeling weird, like sending your employees home early for no reason. And here's something that happens at $30,000 that catches most people completely off guard. You start valuing time more than money, not in some philosophical way, but in a practical, mathematical way. If you can make $50 an hour at your job, then spending 2 hours researching the cheapest possible option to save $20 doesn't make sense anymore. Your time is worth more than that. This sounds obvious, but most people never make this mental shift. They'll spend hours hunting for the best deal on something that costs $50, not realizing they could have earned more money in that same time and still come out ahead. At $30,000, you start optimizing for time and convenience, not just for the lowest price. The investment opportunities that become available at $30,000 aren't just about having more money to invest. They're about having enough money to take meaningful positions in different asset classes. You can put $5,000 in a retirement account, $5,000 in index funds, $5,000 in individual stocks you believe in, and still have $15,000 left for emergencies and opportunities. This diversification isn't just about spreading risk, it's about spreading learning. When you own stocks, you start paying attention to business news differently. When you contribute to retirement accounts, you start understanding tax strategies. When you have multiple income streams, you start thinking like an entrepreneur, even if you still have a day job. All of this learning compounds over time, making you better at spotting opportunities, avoiding mistakes, and maximizing the money you already have. The person who reaches $30,000 isn't just wealthier than they were before. They're smarter, more confident, and more strategic about everything related to money and career and life choices. But here's the thing that makes all of this possible in the first place. Reaching $30,000 proves to yourself that you can delay gratification on a meaningful scale. You've demonstrated that you can consistently choose long-term benefit over short-term pleasure. You've shown that you can stick to a plan even when it's boring or difficult, or when everyone around you is spending money you're choosing to save. This self-trust is incredibly powerful, and it extends far beyond money. When you know you can save $30,000, you start believing you can achieve other difficult goals too. Maybe you can get in shape, maybe you can learn a new skill, maybe you can start that business or write that book or move to that city you've always dreamed about. The confidence that comes from hitting this milestone creates what psychologists call a positive feedback loop. Success breeds confidence, which leads to better decisions, which creates more success. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, gaining momentum and size with every turn. And the beautiful thing is, once this momentum kicks in, it becomes almost impossible to stop. The habits and mindset that got you to 30,000 are the same habits and mindset that will get you to 100,000, then to 1,000,000, then to whatever level of wealth and freedom you decide you want to achieve. The hardest part about reaching $30,000 isn't the saving itself. It's resisting the urge to immediately blow it on something that makes you feel rich instead of something that makes you actually wealthy. And trust me, the temptation is real. Your brain starts whispering sweet little lies like you deserve that new car, or you've earned a vacation to Europe, or maybe it's time to finally get that kitchen renovation. Here's the thing. Your brain doesn't tell you in those moments. Every dollar you spend trying to look wealthy is a dollar that can't work to make you actually wealthy. And at $30,000, those dollars are finally ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean. Your friend Sarah hits $30,000 and immediately puts 20 of it toward a down payment on a luxury car. Now she's got a shiny BMW in the driveway and monthly payments that eat up half her disposable income. Meanwhile, your friend Jake hits $30,000 and puts 20 of it into a diversified investment portfolio. 5 years later, Sarah's car is worth maybe $12,000, while Jake's investments are worth over $35,000. Same starting point, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't intelligence or luck. It's understanding that $30,000 isn't about what you can buy today. It's about what you can build for tomorrow. And here's where most people completely lose the plot. They think building wealth means living like a hermit, eating ramen noodles, and never enjoying anything. That's not wealth building. That's self-punishment with a savings account. The real secret is learning to spend money on things that pay you back, either in dollars or in time or in opportunities. At $30,000, you can start making investments that seemed impossible before. Maybe you spend $3,000 on a professional certification that doubles your hourly rate. Maybe you invest $5,000 in a friend's food truck that pays you back $200 a month for the next 10 years. Maybe you put $10,000 into index funds and forget about it for the next 2 decades. The point is, $30,000 isn't your destination, it's your launching pad. It's the moment when you stop being someone who saves money and start being someone who builds wealth. It's when you realize that the real game isn't about accumulating dollars in a bank account. The real game is about creating systems that generate freedom, opportunities, and choices that most people can't even imagine. So if you're sitting there with $15,000 or $20,000 thinking you're almost done, think again. The most exciting part of your financial journey is just getting started. And if you're nowhere near $30,000 yet, don't get discouraged. Every dollar you save is a vote for the person you're becoming, not just the bank balance you're building. The $30,000 rule isn't about the money, it's about the transformation. And once you experience that transformation, there's no going back to thinking small about what's possible for your life.